Directors of the Carpinteria Valley Water District for August 14th, 2024. Our president is absent this evening, and our vice president is going to be, we believe, participating remotely over Zoom due to health reasons. And so I guess we need a motion to pick a chair.
Holly makes a motion to pick a chair.
Who?
Matt.
Second.
The way you worded it. I make a motion for Matt to pick a chair.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
And is anyone else in the room with you, Director Johnson?
No.
Okay. And Director Roberts?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Well, that said, then I will call this meeting to order, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is the roll call.
So we need a point of order. We need to, I think, don't we need to take a vote prior to, so we need to take a vote to allow Director Johnson to participate remotely.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Johnson?
Aye.
And no one else is in the room with you?
No.
Okay. And Director Roberts?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
I guess we still have the formality of a roll call. Who's in attendance? So that'll be item number 2 on the agenda.
Okay. So for directors present, Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Here.
Director Johnson?
Present.
And no one else is with you in the room? Is anyone else
with me in the room? Yeah, you asked that question to me.
And Director Van Wingerden is absent, and Director Roberts.
Here.
Okay, 4 present.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3, public forum, where any person may address the Board of Directors on matters within our jurisdiction which are otherwise not on tonight's agenda. No public forum. Is anybody on Zoom wishing to do a public forum? We have no one? Okay. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has on it the minutes of the regular board meeting held on July 24th, and that is it.
Holly makes a motion to
For
approve.
approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. A vote, please.
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Johnson?
Aye, nobody in the room.
Director Van Wingerden is absent, and Director Roberts.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 5 is unfinished business, and none is listed on tonight's agenda, so we'll move on to item 6 with new business. And item A, to recognize the Carpinteria Waterwise Garden Recognition Contest winner for 2024. These
Yes,
are always
and I
lots of beautiful
see we
slides.
have the winner is present, so we'll go ahead. I was going to move this, but oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, let me end that. Apologize, I thought I had it right. Is the 14th, right? right, sorry about that. A little bit of a technical difficulty there. So every year, Santa Barbara County puts on, Santa Barbara County Water Agency puts on a water-wise garden contest. And they try to get one garden from every area in the county, and you know, Carpinteria has really represented in this program in that there have been a number of winners in Carpinteria of the entire county. And this year's similar to that. We had a garden win. Natasha Lomas, who's here tonight, has a beautiful garden that includes a dry river that you know, helps water the lawn. It's a very low xeriscape type landscape, and I've got some pictures here that I'll share with you. So you can kind of see the dry river there. Many beautiful flowers that attract wildlife and bees. Very colorful. And so whenever we do have a Carpinteria winner, we ask them, you know, if they would be interested in coming in and being recognized for their hard work. And I understand from our water conservation specialist that Ms. Lomas has been working on this garden for 5 years. So a lot of work has gone into this. And you know, as a water district, we don't get to see these types of things that help stretch our water supply, and so we really want to show our appreciation and recognize the winners of these things. And so, just from me, and I think the board also, thank you so much for all your hard work, and we would love to get a photo op with you if you're open to that.
Besides the ones that were already taken?
Well, just up here with the board, you know, kind of saying thank you. All right. Well, I mean, yes.
Well, come on up. And then we'll have you say a few words.
No, I don't need to be in it. I'm going to put this up here.
Well, Natasha, it's a beautiful garden. Do you have any, want to give us any tips on how you did it?
Oh, sure. I retired. That allowed me to do it. I started with the expensive stuff.
On the mic, would be good.
This isn't being
I know,
recorded,
we
is it?
didn't prepare you for all
No, you didn't. First thing I did is I got rid of my horrible rain gutter because it emptied out on my driveway, and there was a low spot and it flooded. Every time it rained, I had to go take a push broom before I could get out the door. So that and building a fence to keep my German Shepherds in. But I had it redone so now the water comes and falls right by my house and feeds this dry creek. So when it rains, it pushes the water all through my yard, and the water can percolate through the soil. Then I spent a lot of money having my whole walkway taken out and regraded so it doesn't flow out in the street, it flows back into the yard. So when the rain does come, everything goes into the yard. And then I have a little, what I would call a French drain. It's just a little channel that's full of gravel, so that water has a chance to slowly percolate before it hits the yard. My big mistake was I went to S&S Seeds and got a no-mow drought-tolerant lawn. And they said it was native. Well, it wasn't native to Southern California. So you saw that picture, it's nice and green. Well, a month after that, it all died. So now I have to dig it all out, and I think I found another type of grass that is also no-mow lawn and drought tolerant, because now I don't have to have the fumes or the electricity to have the lawn maintained. So it'll just get about that tall and flop over. It looks nice. A lot of these plants are drought tolerant. They don't all look like it. The ferns you see are actually drought tolerant ferns. They're native bracken ferns, and I hardly ever water them in the backyard. And they look lush, but they're not. You know, they just stay green all the time. So I picked my plants carefully. One of the plants that you showed, the little button-like, that is a rare plant off of Santa Cruz Island, the one on the right. That is called red-flowered buckwheat. And it came from the Botanic Gardens, and the bees love it. I cannot water when the bees are out, so only at night. But it's a drought-tolerant plant, but it likes fog, so it does really well here. What else could I tell you about it?
Couple of succulents there.
There's a few cacti and succulents. Not that many. I also have some fruit trees, so, you know, it's edible. But ever since I put the creek in, my population of lizards skyrocketed. So I was really happy about that. And my dogs don't bother the lizards, and they just bother the cats that would hunt the lizards, so everything's fine. That's it. Any questions?
Bravo.
Well, congratulations.
It's
Very good,
beautiful.
yes.
Thank
Join
you.
a
Beautiful.
very small and elite group of super gardeners that have the
I'm
prized
kinda-
possession is that rock. So.
You know, it's not hard. I mean, I'm competing with families of, 5 kids. It's just me. So my water bill is low naturally, and I collect rainwater. And so it's not hard, really. You just have to think about what you're doing, that's it.
Nice.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, it's a beautiful yard and very low water usage. And also, whoever wrote this piece and this announcement is, I just wanted to comment how great that was. Great public-friendly writing. Maybe it was Rhonda who wrote it,
Yeah, it was Rhonda.
Army of native plants and, wildlife budget-friendly water-wise wonderland. Makes me want to do it myself. Okay, thank you.
But I forgot to say one thing. She also, Rhonda took all the winners from all the county, and I won that one too, so I won the best in the county out of all the,
Wow.
and I didn't expect to win any.
That's great. That's awesome.
It is.
All right.
All
We'll
right.
move on to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
That'll be 5C, which is consider ratifications of the authorizations.
Oh, we skipped over B.
Did I? Oh, I'm sorry. I did. That's because I drew a circle around it already. My bad. Consider engaging Chandler Asset Management for District Investment Advisor Services. This was something we saw at the rate and budget.
Yeah,
committee.
this is something we saw at the rate and budget, but I thought I would rehash some of it, kind of the background. So the district's current approach is just leave reserves in LAIF until we need them. It's highly liquid, but the return on investment's not great. But according to Government Code 53-600, reserves are public funds, and they should be managed by balancing 3 priorities: safety, principal, return on investment, and liquidity. And so LAIF really checks the liquidity box, doesn't really check the return box, and does check the safety box. So because of that, and because of higher interest rates recently, we've been considering trying to increase that rate of return while maintaining the liquidity that we need and the safety of principal. To that end, we updated the district investment policy, which identified other investment vehicles, primarily U.S. federal treasuries and agency bonds, CDs, and other fixed instruments. And those other fixed instruments include JPAs like LAIF and another one called CAMP. So in order to, as I said, in order to improve returns, maintain safety and liquidity, staff's proposing to engage an investment advisor named Chandler Asset Management. We reached out to various asset managers and investment advisors, and most of them, the amount of money that we have to invest is too small for them to handle. Chandler was willing, and another company was willing. Looked at both of them, but in the end, we decided to recommend Chandler Asset because they've been in business for a long time and they represent a lot of water districts. So they have experience in the space and they've shown consistent returns over time. So this is a list of agencies and the amounts that they manage for these agencies that Chandler has agreements with. Some of these are big, some of these are small. You know, this one here, 4 million, is less. We have about 10 million, so Tuolumne might be similar to our size, but they're, as you can see, they range from 4 million all the way up to hundreds of millions of dollars. So one benchmark that is typically used in measuring performance in these types of investments is the ICE Bank of America 1 to 3 U.S. Treasury Index and 1 to 5 U.S. Treasury and Agency Index. And so you can see in the yellow, these are kind of the benchmarks. If looking at from 23 going backwards, you know, you can see some of the returns. So the returns are pretty high just if you were investing in, or not investing, but if you were watching these benchmarks. The 3 years, not so good. You can see they're pretty low. The 5 years, a little bit better. The 10 years, kind of, you know, where you would expect it to be. And then this is since the inception of Chandler's strategies. So then you compare Chandler strategies, and they have two primary strategies. One is to hold till maturity. So they buy bonds and they hold them till maturity. And then the other one is short-term bonds, which is they buy them and sell them opportunistically when the rates, when on the markets, when they're reselling, the rates are you know, the rate of return is a good deal. So this approach is a little more aggressive, but you can, you know, lose some return if you get kind of squeezed with changes in interest rate and need for liquidity. So there's a little bit more risk associated with this one, but you can see that the returns are higher over the different periods. So the idea is to compare it to the index, and so they put a gross and a net of fees. Their fees are $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year. Comes out to a little over 2.5% at $10 million in investing, which is, I'm sorry, not 2.5.
0.25?
Yeah, 0.25, 25 basis points, which is high, but you know, it's the lowest they will go. But even with the, you can see here, even with the maturity, they still outperform what these indexes show.
Is this chart showing what our proposed basis point cost would be, or what's that demonstrating?
This shows the return. Yeah. So on the net
Net of fees, what fees are they using for that?
the $2,000
Our proposed ones.
per month. Yeah. Yeah. So it would represent about 0.25%. And so you have the option of either going with, you know, this strategy or this strategy, and you know, it does outperform LAIF. That doesn't mean we wouldn't use LAIF for portions of our reserves. So the way that it would likely be structured is we would have you know, sort of 3 buckets of money. We'd have immediate liquidity, where that could be moving in and out of LAIF, because LAIF has a 1 day turn back. So you could request your money and it comes in 1 day. then you'd have sort of an intermediate liquidity bucket where you say, well, we don't need this money for anything planned, but we might need it. And then you have the long-term, where you don't really anticipate needing that money for, 1 to 5 years.
So we would keep a portion in LAIF in the 3 bucket. Would Chandler handle the other 2 buckets that you talked about?
Yeah, so Chandler's not handling anything, they're just giving us advice.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we make decisions based on the advice that Chandler would provide on what to invest for how long and when. So,
For the other 2 buckets?
yeah, so if we said, oh, we need immediate liquidity on this money, we would make sure that it's in an overnight type vehicle where we can request it and get it back within the time we need the money.
But for the fastest one, would that be LAIF?
Yes, lay for camp, yeah. So this is a comparison of LAIF versus the two investment strategies for Chandler. So annualized total return, 20-year period. So you can kind of see the delta of, the maturity approach and the short-term approach. You get a little bit better returns with the short term, about 1% more than LAIF. So this is an evaluation of, I believe it's $5 million investment. So if you invest $5 million, let's say in the limited maturity, it's going to get $7.5 million of return after 10 years. Versus LAIF, which would get 6.9. So you get about 600,000 more by this approach, and then 1.6 million more for this approach.
This is based on a 9 basis point cost, this chart. Do we have one that's based on what our rate would be?
Is that in the footnotes?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't have one, but, yeah, so if it was 9 basis points, you would, about, take off another, was it,
More than
15 or so, or 15-ish basis points. So, so yeah, you could just remove that from all of these, or actually from these two. So what we're looking for is an advisor. Again, we would utilize them to give us up-to-date advice as to when to move money in and out of certain programs, and we would also be in touch with them on a continuous basis so that we could manage the liquidity.
I think as was presented at the Rate and Budget Committee, there's a certain choreography that they help with so that we have the money invested in the appropriate term of an instrument, so it doesn't conflict with our need for cash. And so that was one of the services that I think staff was looking for help with, or felt that was of value. But I do have a question. They don't have, it's not a Chandler fund of bonds that you actually get. And
It's
you actually buy the
Yeah,
bonds
it's a strategy,
themselves.
right?
And generally, it's mostly
U.S.
Government.
Treasuries, yeah. U.S.
U.S. Treasuries, or
U.S. Treasuries. They also
you
include
say U.S. Treasuries mean
U.S. bonds.
government
Treasury
bonds that could
bills,
be in any state?
No, U.S. like the federal government.
These
yeah.
are federal
Yeah.
bonds. Okay, I didn't know
Federal bonds. They do allow agency bonds, so that means like the EPA may float bonds, and you could invest in an EPA bond, for example. And then they also use other instruments like CDs from banks. They do look at commercial paper, but you can tell them we don't want to invest in high quality.
They don't look at other, like, local water bonds or local school bonds, or, I mean, there's so many.
No, I don't believe municipal bonds is listed in their portfolio.
But CDs are included.
CDs with banks up to the FDIC insured level.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I had a couple questions. I know some of us in the neighborhood around here, we're looking at the same thing. Maybe Montecito's already done it, I don't know. Do we know if they engaged anybody?
Montecito or Combe?
Montecito.
Montecito, no, I believe they, and so this is a question that is unclear from a legal standpoint. I believe they invest in an ETF, which we're not sure is legal under the government code.
Okay. And then I know Edward has been going down this path too at Combe. But to my knowledge, I don't think we have anybody. You know, if we have an advisor.
Anybody?
It-
So I know they are proposing for City of Santa Barbara, but I don't know if they've been
Okay.
awarded a
And
contract
then
agreement.
several months ago, maybe it wasn't several months ago, but maybe it was an admin meeting where we were talking about this very thing. And I thought you were looking at another company then. I don't remember it being.
We
Jan-
were,
Okay,
but we decided against them because they didn't have enough years years as business and years of experience with
Okay.
their staff.
okay.
Um,
Thank you.
I had a question. I guess bottom line for someone who's just pretty simple at this is I think that Chandler definitely has the credentials to invest safely, but not, especially looking at the most recent years, because things have changed so much. How much do we get back from Leif versus Chandler's strategy and I think you said 10 million, but it might be more like $8 million, I understand, that we have, and maybe we can build up that liquidities, or that dollar amount so we can earn more with it. But, and I guess the bottom line would be, does that cover their service charge? And also, their strategy, does that involve more broker charges? Because I think it definitely involves moving the money around more. And if you add the broker charges on top of their $2,000 a month, how just very penciled out. Does it make sense? Is it advantage to us? Or
To
does
Shirley's
it
point,
cost
especially
more
if the
to be
third is
more
in life.
sophisticated investor than not to be?
Yeah, so the brokerage fees are included. So they contract with brokers, although the brokers work directly with the district. They contract with brokers to do the trades, so that it's included in their fee.
Oh, that's good to know, because that would have been a big question mark. So there's no
Yeah, we
other
checked it,
broker.
since I think you asked that question in the committee meeting, so we did follow up and check with that.
And then how long is there a contract term or something, how long we would be working with them, or if something doesn't go the way if we're starting to feel uncomfortable, is there a exit strategy?
Yeah, we can end our arrangement with them without,
I'm glad that we're
Notice.
putting it in different buckets. I completely understand the need to get a little bit more earnings, but I've always been a little leery of trading out Leif just because of the security. So, and the quick way to get the funds if we need it.
right.
But I know we've been looking at this for a long time, and it certainly does make sense to revisit given the increased rates.
I would add, I guess, just some questionable practices is both the charts they propose to us have different basis points, neither of which are anywhere close to the fees that they're purporting we're going to pay.
Yeah, so I don't have the slide here, but the way that their slide or their fees work is anything below $50,000 or $50 million is $2,000 per month, so $24,000 a year. At 10 million, that comes around 2.5 or 0.25% or 25 basis points.
Sure.
And so I think these slides are probably pre-prepared, not for our particular agency. I just took them from their slide deck. But you can do the math. I mean, you're talking about LAIF is 1.65 over 20 years. So let's say this is based on 9 basis points. You know, if it's 0.25, then you add 16 basis, or you subtract 16 basis points from 2.04, and that's 80 or 70 or 88, 1.88% return. So it's still better than LAIF, and then it's even better with the short-term bond composite. So it even with the fees, it still beats LAIF.
So the goal here is to get a better rate, a return on our investment or on our cash
Right.
balance while minimizing the risk with the assistance of professional assistance.
Exactly.
folks.
Exactly.
There was a slide
Yeah.
in here that
And,
was talking
and staff
about
makes a
that.
recommendation that this is what we should,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what we're hoping for, or what we're asking for, is authority to engage Chandler as our investment advisor.
Holly makes a motion to support the project, engage Chandler.
I have another question, but,
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
yeah, okay, and then I had another question. What is the ETF? And it seems, I think, Central Coast Water Authority is investing in that as well.
Yeah, an exchange traded fund is an actual packaged fund, packaged fund that aggregates various things into a single package, and then they slice it up and sell it in shares. And the government code that governs what we can invest in doesn't really address whether that's if it's an authorized investment of public funds. Not because it's unsafe per se, but because you have to trust companies to be, not to go under, I guess, if you will, those companies who own the actual assets, who are dividing it up and reselling the shares. And so there's an element of risk that buying directly U.S. Treasury bonds doesn't have. So I think that's where it's a little bit in the gray area of whether it's allowed under the government code.
I think a good way, I mean, bonds are tangible in the math, there's a math to it. And a discount or a premium based upon the interest rates of the Fed and, all the AAA rated stuff. But an ETF's got a lot of perception. And its price can vary with all of the mechanics behind it, but then also a huge piece of perception can play a role in either the premium or the discount you might pay for an ETF. So I think that's one of the big differences.
Thank you, yeah, okay.
We don't anticipate any kind of cash squeeze with the potential of cap coming up, where we're gonna have minimal amount invested in this and paying a $2,000 a month fee?
Well, I think I'll refer that question to Norma, but I believe we assume that we'll have between $8 and $10 million of available cash for investment.
Yeah,
For the next 3 years or something,
we've
period of
run
time.
some cash flow models with the CAP project as well, so our projections right now are between 8 and 10 million now.
Yeah, and remembering that CAP is going to be primarily funded through grants and loans, so we're not expecting to tap into our reserves for that project.
I actually did have one more question. So who's responsible for the relationship? Would that be you, Norma, with these guys?
The Chandler,
Uh-huh.
they would be communicating with myself or Bob.
Okay, so one of you two will be the key point of contact. Okay,
Yeah, and per our updated investment policy, we're required to do report, I believe it's a quarterly reporting?
Quarterly.
Yeah. Quarterly reporting on performance and what moves are being considered or have been made.
thank you.
And again, LAIF, the history of LAIF is what percentage return?
1.65,
Over what period?
20 year.
1 year, okay. Okay,
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Guess we'll have a vote.
Director Holcomb,
Yes?
Director Balch,
Nay.
Director Johnson,
aye.
Director Van Wingerden is absent, Director Roberts.
Aye.
Okay, so motion passes 310.
Next item on the agenda is 6C, consider ratification of authorization Santa Claus Lane change order in the amount of $14,250 from Tierra Contractors.
Yeah, I'll try to remind you without getting too convoluted here, but you recall that Santa Claus Lane is a project that we were required to move some pipelines and do some work in conjunction with the county's street improvement project. We received bids from only one contractor, Toro Contractors. We rejected that bid, and then we negotiated a price with Tierra. And the original, for this piece of work that we're talking about, the original scope and price included an 8-inch water main in the amount of $161,675. The tie-in of that pipeline was excluded from the quote because staff believed it could complete the task. But once Tierra got out in the field and started trenching, they ran into a lot of high groundwater and trench stability issues that made it very difficult. And because of that, the district staff decided, well, you know, they already have all of their equipment and they've already been dealing with this high groundwater. Let's just have them do the tie-in so we don't have to go in and try to keep everything stable after they pull out of the site. So we requested a price quote, and they returned one for $14,250. So in the staff budgeting, we had budgeted $23,000 because we knew we would likely have to have shoring and traffic control. And since they already had that out there, they came in with a price lower than that. And so we agreed. And because the time was sensitive, you know, they were there and they were getting ready to close up the hole. We said, please go ahead and make the tie-in and before you backfill the trench. And so that was under my authority. And so just a reminder, this is Santa Claus Lane, and this little red section is the pipeline that they constructed, and this point right here is the tie-in to the existing system. And so a couple of photos kind of showing what they were up against. So you can see these yellow things. These are trench boxes that are required to, when you go to a certain depth, to keep the trench open. As they were excavating initially, the trench walls were falling in because of the groundwater. They also had to pump water out of the trench to dewater it so they could actually get in there and work and compact. So they had to bring Baker tanks on site. So there's a lot of overhead to just getting this pipeline in. And so we thought, well, what's that? There's a buzz. So you can see here, this is near the tie-in, and you can see this large trench box. You can't really see the edge of the road, but you can see these plates going up. So they're in there 8 feet, 7 to 8 feet deep to the bottom of this hole. And so rather than have them backfill this and pull out, we just decided let's connect it. So what the staff recommendation is to ratify the authorization that the general manager made under his authority to revise the original quote from $161,675 to $17,925.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, can we have the vote, please?
Director Holcomb?
Yes.
Director Balch?
Aye.
Director Johnson?
Nobody in the room.
Thanks. Director Van Wingerden is absent, and Director Roberts.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 6D, consider amendment 1 for JPA agreement for CGSA. This is an information item only.
Yeah, so this will come back next week for action, but I thought I would give you a chance to make comments on it so we could finalize it. As you know, the JPA agreement is an agreement between the Water District, the City of Carpinteria, the counties of Ventura and Santa Barbara. The agreement forms the Joint Powers Authority under Government Code 6500. It was formed in January of 2020, and it serves, the authority serves as the state designated groundwater sustainability agency. So the agreement itself had some issues that were causing us difficulty getting business done. Whenever a director was not present, we had to evaluate whether we could actually vote. And so it wasn't by design that was happening. It was by ambiguity, I guess, in the agreement. So we're proposing to revise that and define it, some terms a little bit better so that we can do business without interruption. So there are many sections here, but in particular, the proposal is to modify section 1.2 to define supermajority shall mean 2/3 of a quorum, but in no event less than 4 directors, which is fine. And then jumping to section 9.1, so defined, or it basically talks about what a quorum is. Majority of the board of directors shall constitute a quorum. And then section 9.3 was changed, and this basically says that all regular business will be conducted by a majority vote, which, you know, was somewhat clear in the original agreement, but you know, basically we had this system in the original agreement where we'd have a first hearing and a second hearing, and the first hearing you couldn't actually vote without having a unanimous vote, and so we did away with all of that. And then we carved out certain items that will need a supermajority vote, which is as defined in the first section, at least 4 directors. And those are these 7 items. Some of these were in the original agreement, but there were a few added. I believe, was it the initiation of defense and settlement litigation? I think it was the last 3 of these were added, or last.
2 was modified.
And 2 was modified, okay. So, you know, I don't want to go through each one of these, but, you know, approval and adoption of GSP is already in the rearview mirror. And the rest of these are just big decisions that we felt warranted a supermajority vote. And then there's some added language as well about issuance of indebtedness. You know, that the agency may issue bonds and notes, forms of indebtedness. And then that's it. So those are kind of the proposed changes, not substantial, but just enough to kind of clean up the language of the agreement so that we can, when a director is missing, we can actually take action on something. If it's not in the, actually they would be able to do it too, even on those supermajorities, as long as all 4 directors voted affirmative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay, that'll come back next week for consideration. Did Director Johnson have a question?
I was going to ask, yeah.
Oh, okay, I go next, okay. Yeah, a supermajority vote, it seems like that's not the same as a no case under 4 votes. Because, I guess the question I have is how many seats, because you have one wording is referring to eligible voters. Another wording is referring to board members present. And so, not eligible to vote, but just present that day. And so I don't think the 4 votes that's set in stone. It really doesn't have anything to do with the majority does it, but how many seats are you talking about here? What are you envisioning?
This assumes 5 seats, as it is currently, and so it could, I think there is some language in there that talks about, so basically here it says, shall mean 2/3 of a quorum, but in no event less than 4. So if there were 6 or 7 or 8, because we allow up to 8 seats on the board, it would have to be 2/3 of that, but not less than 4 directors.
And, okay, that's a super majority, and then all the other votes are a majority. So, if you have, and a quorum is, a quorum, if there's 5 directors, a quorum would be 3. And so if you had a majority of a quorum, that would be 2 votes, things could pass. Is that correct?
General counsel is nodding her head, so I would say yes.
Let the record show the general counsel is nodding her head in an affirmative direction.
Oh, it could be, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know
so-
about that. 2 votes, yeah, to pass various things. And also what happens if you end up with, with 8 seats on the council?
Would you
Well, I
like?
did-
It would
I
be
did
another
look-
JPA amendment, wouldn't it not?
No, it's allowed in the,
Oh, it's already
yeah,
set?
the
We just-
board would have to,
Vacancies?
yeah, the board would have to appoint those seats if,
I see. Has this been circulated to all the members?
no, I wanted to have your input prior to sending it out for their review.
And this, these amendments are generated from us?
They're generated from general counsel, yeah.
All right, well, I certainly will wait to hear what the other members, if it raises their interest or what, but.
Did we want to clarify that there's a minimum for majority vote?
More than 2?
More than 2 or 3, yeah, maybe a minimum of 3
That
or
would
something.
be- Yeah, I would say.
Fine.
Just so it's clear. That's the big issue.
And we need to define supermajority because it doesn't say a supermajority means this or that in this wording. It just means no less than 4 votes for items of a certain category.
Well, 4 is the
Even that
minimum. yeah.
definition might say, if supermajority will mean 2/3 or more of a quorum. Or no less than 2/3 of a quorum.
Yeah, because a quorum would be 3,
It defines it as an
and
absolute value.
2/3 of 3 is 2. A quorum of 5 is 3. Quorum of 8 is 5. So it's
Well, yeah, so under the supermajority, it's a minimum of 4, but we could do it under the simple majority, a minimum of 3, and that solves those problems.
Okay.
That's fine.
yeah.
So we wouldn't take action on this unless the members have had a chance to review it and.
Yeah, so the plan is to have them do legal review on it and then tell us any feedback that they want, and we would work with our general counsel to finalize it before we brought it back for action.
But we're shooting for the 21st.
Yeah, so,
I thought you said something about next week.
yeah, I was planning to bring it back, to give me authority to go ahead and start the process.
I see. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next item, which is 6E, consider migration of the district's website to streamlined content management platform.
Yeah, so, maybe you all have spent time on our website. It's been a long work in progress. We've, gone from a very simple website to pretty sophisticated website at this point. But something that happened earlier this year was the Department of Justice released a new guideline for accessibility on websites. And that guideline is required us to do a review and will require us to make some changes to comply with the guidelines. They're called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 AA. And we initially went out and had our our consultant that does web updates for us look at this, and they did a review, and they came back and said, yeah, there's significant issues that need to be addressed according to the guidelines. And so we kind of sat on it for a while, but we've been getting lots of information about how the American Disabilities Act is already requiring accessibility per this standard, and there are attorneys out there sort of challenging websites of agencies already, and so we decided, okay, well, we have to do something about this. And so we looked at what it would cost to update our website, and found out that it wasn't a huge amount, but it was going to need to be a continuous thing. In other words, we have to continually update it to make sure that we're in compliance. Our original website was built on an open source content management system called WordPress, and so WordPress is sort of the open to the public, and so you can do a lot of customization, and there's lots of widgets that you can add to it, and so it seemed to work well for us. It's free. We just developed our content on top of that system, and then you can revise the content using their content management system. But over the years, because it's ubiquitous in webs, lots of people are trying to hack into it, and so there's always patches that need to be updated, and we did a cyber security review on it as well, and we found lots of problems that would need to be updated. And so as an option, we looked at services like Streamline. There's two of them, Civic Plus and Streamline. And Streamline stood out to us, because they have a accessibility tool that just continually checks to make sure that it's up to the recent standards, and lets you know if there's some issues. So once it's ported over to Streamline, it's guaranteed to be up to compliance with the new code, and then it will continue to monitor and let us know if something's not meeting the requirements, even as the requirements change. They also they have their own content management system. It's not like WordPress where people are continuously trying to hack it. And so they take the overhead to manage it and make sure that it's secure. And so we saw a demo of the platform. We looked at some websites. COM uses it, CCWA uses it, Casitas uses it. So there's a lot of agencies around that are already on this platform. We looked at the cost. The cost is neutral or even negative, because one of the things that we would do if we ported over to Streamline is get rid of Granicus and use Zoom. Since we already use Zoom, we would just utilize that to stream the videos. So in terms of a cost, it really doesn't change. It actually saves us a little bit of money. Benefits include we'd be in compliance with the standards as we migrate over, and then ongoingly we would also be, or we would know when we're not out of compliance, and we would be able to adjust. Better web security, because it's not on open source content management system. And it also has a lot of tools which are better than WordPress on the content management system. It integrates seamlessly with all the social medias so that when we have messaging, we can push it out on the website, and it also will go out on the social media channels. So we're recommending that we move to this system just for the CVWD website. We looked at the GSA website, which weren't, this wouldn't be the venue to talk about it, but we decided that the CVWD system makes sense, but we'll hold off on the GSA website. So the recommendation is to authorize the general manager to engage Streamline to migrate the existing website to Streamline platform and subscribe to the Community Pro Streamline content management system in an amount of $1,500 for migration services, which is a one-time cost, and $6,720 annually for the Streamline Community Pro content management system.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, give a vote, please.
Director Holcomb,
Yes.
Director Balch,
Aye.
Director Johnson,
Aye, no one's in the room.
Director Van Wingerden is absent, and Director Roberts.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 6F is the next one on our agenda. Consider attending the California Water Reuse Conference in September 15th through 17th, 2024.
Yeah, so I've been meaning to go to this conference every year for the last several years, and I finally caught it in time to sign up for it, and I just wanted to make an invite to any directors who might be interested in this conference. It's in Garden Grove. It's September 15th to 17th. And so if you're interested, please let us know, and we'll reserve a hotel room and get a conference fee package for you.
Okay, great.
I had a comment on that one as well. It sounds like this water reuse organization, there's so many organizations and they're always new, but it seems, and let me know if you agree, Bob, it seems like it's really more on a more technical level and engineering, and not just selling legal services or this or that or the other, although they may go in those areas as well. But some of the things they post in the articles, my eyes just immediately cross, because it seems like it's really a high technical level that would be very valuable for the technical people, yourself or in staff engineers, to be up on the new developments. What do you think? What's your?
Yeah, I think they offer that, but they do have director level programs that would be interesting, to talk about case studies for various projects that have gone forward.
That's always great. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we'll check it out. There is a published itinerary, or whatever they call curriculum.
Yes, if you'd like, we can send that to you.
That would be
The
helpful.
program, yeah.
Sure, okay. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 6G. Consider and discuss notice of a board vacancy in the Carpinteria Valley Water District election, District number 5.
Yes, so we're sad to hear it, but Director Johnson has indicated that she will be vacating the seat for District 5 in December of this year. And so
Do that?
you can do that, but we don't recommend it. We don't recommend it. But as such, we need to fill that vacancy, and so we have a process that we've used in the past. What we'll do is we'll put a notice of vacancy out there in the paper. We'll put it out on our website and social media. This will be the first time, I believe, actually, maybe not. I think we might have appointed Director Stendel in a district, yeah. So we have done that before. But essentially what it will be is a recruitment, and then the board will interview those candidates and then select a candidate and appoint. So we'd like to do that, in time so that in December there is another appointed candidate for this seat. So this is just kind of a draft of what we might put out there. Talks about, positions, a 4-year term ending in 2026, December 4th. It's 2 years into the term. Appointed candidates will take seat in December 11th meeting. And then the seat will next go to the election in November of 2026. And so I put a rough deadline of October 18th for applications, so that we have time to review and set up interviews so that we can get someone appointed by that December meeting. So,
Shirley, I'm begging you to reconsider.
Thank you, but yeah, I have to take it. It's not that I'm dying today, although it feels like it sometimes, but yeah, I really have to take a different direction. I may, I'll still be, bothering everyone, or Bob anyway, with emails in the water world, but yeah, I have some other things coming up, so we'll see. I may come back in a few years, or
That's
No,
what we
no.
want to hear.
Yeah.
thank you, Polly. Thank you very much.
okay, so I wanted to get this to you here tonight before you see it in the Coastal View News and on the webpage. We may, depending on how difficult and how much interest we're getting, we may also resort to direct mailing this to customers within District 5. That's it.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 7 directors' reports. And the first one, A, which is the Rate and Budget Committee meeting for August 8th. Director Johnson and myself attended, and the items that we discussed were discussed tonight with the Chandler Asset Management Agreement, and also migrating our website over to Streamline Content Management. So there's no further report.
That's it.
Next item is the Combe Fisheries Committee. Polly, I think it
Thank
says you're
you.
here.
Right, so I was an alternate, and a couple of things. It was, we approved moving the Draft Kachuma Project Master Contract Renewal Fund and the Warren Act Trust Fund Long-Term and Annual Plan and the Santa Barbara County Betterment Fund to the board for approval, and it's just kind of that time of year. Edward reviewed the finances associated with that. Then on the fish update, it's similar to what I'd said last time. There's just fish everywhere. We're really, really pleased. There are a little bit of some barriers on Hilton Creek, and so Tim is looking at some fixes there that might help. These ladders, the ladders where the fish can jump up, looking at some of those things, only pending grant funding. We always say that, only pending grant funding, so we're working on that now. And then we got a list of some terms to the water rights order that Combe has become involved in, and it was news. I had not heard this yet, and so what I'm going to do is kind of briefly read an update on some of these terms because they're important in kind of what we're involved in right now. So one of them is term, and Bob gave me approval to read this. One of them is term 18, requires Reclamation to develop a plan describing the measure in place to be compliance with Table 2 flows. One of the compliance points is the Highway 154 bridge. A new gauge has been installed by Combe staff in October 2022. 1,200 stream feet above the 154 bridge. Because of limited access to the bridge, Reclamation has previously submitted a draft and a revised draft Term 18 plan to the Water Board. This revised draft satisfied most of the requirements of Term 18, but was insufficient to ensure the compliance with a designated flow requirements of the Highway 154 bridge CDFW is now involved, raised some concerns of the flow that occurs between the new gauge location and the compliance location of 154. In August 2021, CDFW measured a stream loss of 4.3 cubic feet per second, or CFS as we call it, between the 2 points. Accordingly, Reclamation must revise the term 18 plan to incorporate the use of the new gauge and include an evaluation and correction factors for stream losses between the gauge and the compliance location in a representative range of conditions. The Reclamation is currently working on this term 18 with COM's assistance. Term 19 requires Reclamation to conduct a study to evaluate the effectiveness of the Table 2 flows at protecting public trust resources over 5 wet or above normal water year types. Reclamation requested COM to facilitate and coordinate with downstream interests to create a draft framework on how the study might be implemented. COM staff worked with CCRB, ID1, and the parent district's technical staff to craft a draft document incorporating the criteria outlined in Term 18. The draft framework included implementing a pilot study which would collect data through field observations at various compliance locations, and those observations were performed from July to November 2023. Technical staff is recommending to conduct another round of field observations this year, another wet year to inform the group. Those field observations will begin this month and most likely continue through November. Term 24A requires Reclamation to study and evaluate options, among other things, for providing passage of adults and smolts around Bradbury Dam. Reclamation has arranged for and invited COM, among others, to participate in a value planning study scheduled for September 16th through the 20th at the Marriott Hotel in Buellton. And finally, our old friend, Term 27, Reclamation is required to provide the State Board with an annual report that documents compliance with all permit terms for previous water years ending September 30th. Originally, this annual report was due December 31st each year. Reclamation requested an extension for submission to March 31st of the following year. The Water Board has granted Reclamation the request for the extension. This new compliance date will allow COM's reports to be submitted at a later date and then indicated in the fisheries letter agreement with Reclamation. So the bottom line is that COM is involved on some new areas trying to help Reclamation, and CDFW is involved as well. Do you have anything else to add, Bob? It's getting a little complicated.
Yeah, sounds like it. All right.
We're just trying to get along. That concludes my report.
Okay, the next one is Shirley's CCWA board meeting on July 25th, 2024.
Okay, yes, I was foiled by, from attending this physically because of the traffic, so I attended via Zoom as a member of the public. And we returned to open session with no reportable action. And the executive director report. Okay, he reported on the temporary WARN Act, and that is the contract by which the Kachuma users, which Polly was just talking about, have with the federal government to utilize and operate Lake Kachuma. And it is not an extension of the previous agreement. It's a new agreement that's temporary, so they're looking at all kinds of terms. Something new is an automatic 5% conveyance loss charged on top of evaporation losses. And there's no carryover allowed between contracts. And so if you have water stored in Kachuma and the contract ends, another begins, you forfeit your water to the Bureau. Nothing's finalized, but that's what they're talking about now. And I think from that meeting, we had 2 more weeks because we're running up against the deadline to craft a new temporary contract. And I did make a comment on that one that, because I've been doing some research in various statements, and the whole direction of California water is that the snow melt seems to be going as temperatures rise, and the whole, direction is to find more ways of storing water, and especially underground or above ground, and to try to facilitate long-term storage of water, because we can get a ton of water in one year, as we know, and then we might be facing a long-term drought. So, I just really voiced that concern and hope that the, Bureau and the Kachuma members and everyone will work together with some long-term goals in mind to find ways to safely store water, for use of water users, and also for the environment and the fish, when needed. Let's see, one of the, item 5B was canceled on the agenda, so we didn't discuss that one. Something about allocation of lost water. Resolution 2406, approving the San Ynez pumping plant surge tank. And so, yeah, we agreed on that and agreed on the bid, an amount of $381,387. And also we approved an emergency chlorine gas scrubber system, and a contract to Municipal Systems for $55,410. That's a safety, we had an explosion, on one of the links in the pipe. So this is a safety measure to protect the workers from chlorine. And what else? Oh yeah, replacing pedestals on the scrubber. That was part of the and also we went over the DWR statement of charges, and we have 1.8 million total credits, and they are anticipating a rebill from DWR now or towards the end of the year, and so that they'll be dealing with Bob and Norma. They suggested that it be held, for further charges, but if you want to request a refund, you can. And because we have $80.2 million in investments, and they're getting a return of 5.2%. And also state water contracts update. They're still talking about, it used to be called the voluntary agreements, as you may have heard that term, and now it's called Healthy Rivers and Landscapes, and they're still working on that and considering a $10 per acre foot charge for all water deliveries to contractors for the environment and to work on these programs. And there were 57 measures on the legislative report for our information, and that is the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any questions for Shirley? Okay, seeing none, we have on our agenda item 8, which is general managers reports, which says there are none tonight. So if that's the case. Item 9 on the agenda is to consider dates and items for the agenda for our next meeting, which is next Wednesday, August 21st, here at Carpinteria City Hall at 5:30 p.m. And we get to the adjournment, and I want to, in Chair's discretion, adjourn this meeting in memory of Fred Lemire, who is a Carpinteria Valley Water District board member for 17 years, I believe, which is a long run. And I know I worked with him on the board, and he was a good board member. He was here when we did a lot of very difficult decisions, when we put in the foothill tank and the all the reservoir covers, and there was that one zone line. What was that? What do we call that one? I can't remember what we called that.
The central zone main.
Central zone main. But yes, and the reservoir covers, which were no small feat at all. And those were all major improvements to the water system where got us in compliance with the federal drinking water quality standards, which is very important. And Fred was the chair of the board during all that. So let's adjourn this meeting now in his honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.